ICQ Podcast, episode 373, Hamzilla 2022. Well, hello, fellow amateur radio enthusiasts. This is our 373rd episode of the ICQ Amateur Radio Podcast, supported this episode by Bradford Whiting, KD7 Golf Delta Tango, along with our monthly and annual subscription donors. In this episode, I'm joined by Edmund Mike 0 Mike November Golf, Ed DD5 Lima Papa, Dan Romanchik KB6 November Uniform, and Leslie Golf 0 Charlie India Bravo to discuss latest amateur radio news. Myself, Colin M6B, rounds up the news in brief, and this episode's feature is a feature on Hamzilla 2022. Well, as always, we can't do the ICQ podcast without your very kind support and your donations to the show. And this episode, we'd like to thank Bradford Whiting, KD7 Golf Delta Tango, for his very kind donation to the show. As always, what we ask you to do is to consider us, and not only the podcast show, but the newsletter, website, and the digital talk group that we provide for you. And if you find some value from those things, what we ask you to do is to visit icqpodcast.com/donate, where I say there's lots of options there. But more importantly, think of the value you find from those things, and as I say, send it along our way in the form of a donation. So I say we'd like to thank Bradford along with our monthly subscription donors in helping us to produce this episode of the ICQ podcast. Right now, I'm joined by Edmund, Ed, Dan, and Leslie to discuss and generate thoughts about the latest amateur radio news, including the ARRL Alpha's teaching seminar and Russian sanctions for amateur radio. As always, we hope you enjoy and say a news roundtable, and it generates thoughts and discussions for you, for yourself, and for your fellow hams in the clubs, etc. And let us know what you think by visiting icqpodcast.com.
The ICQ podcast, advert free since 2008.
Well, hi, and welcome everybody to episode 373's News Roundtable. It's Colin M6BOY sitting in the chair for a recovering Martin M0MNG. Unfortunately, he's 2 years into the pandemic and he's finally gone down and caught the virus. So we wish him well, and hopefully he'll be with us later on in the episode. I say wishing you well, Dad, and I'm sure my colleagues here will also agree with that, and I'm sure hopefully you guys send your good wishes to him too. Well, I'm joined this episode by my friends and colleagues in the amateur radio world here, and it always seems to be this group that I get paired with, I think, because they keep me out of trouble more than the other group would, and definitely would get me in lots of trouble. So first one, I'd like to welcome from Germany, my friend Ed Durrant DD5 Lima Papa. Welcome to the News Roundtable, Ed. Hope you're well.
Yeah, I'm fine, and Martin, get better soon.
Safe from his return from Hamzilla, where he survived but weighed down the mountain of goodies. Edmund, Mike 0 Mike November Golf. Edmund, how are you? Hope all's well.
Hello, Colin. Hello, everybody. And yes, everything's fine at this end. Thank you.
And as I say, finishing off our quartet of people, as I say, is our friend and colleague, Leslie. Golf 0 Charlie, and I've just had a mental block bail me out here, Leslie.
Well, my local club, they say it's Golf 0 Cash in Bank because I'm the
Cash in
treasurer.
Bank. There it is, Cash in Bank. I tell you, there's a man you need to catch at a Hamfest. He's always got money for coffee. So Golf 0 Cash in Bank, Charlie India Bravo. So yeah, no problems at all. And of course, rounding up our colleagues here on the News Roundtable from the United States of America. We have Dan. Of course, Dan's call sign is KB6 November Uniform. Dan, welcome, and I hope all is well stateside at the moment.
Good evening. Yeah, everything's fine here, and my thoughts to your father.
Problems at all. So apart from when he listens to this hashed up start of a show and he realises how bad I'm doing here, I'll tell you, he'll be back in a flash for the next episode, I'll tell you.
Can I just say one thing? I really do wish Martin gets well soon, but he should have updated Norton.
Oh, don't. And they wonder how we struggle getting the youth into the amateur radio hobby. That's
I
the reason why. Oh, don't.
Maybe he's using Kaspersky.
Oh God, I tell you, we really are working our way through them now, aren't we, guys? Right, okay. Right, let's get this show on the road and keep you guys under control. I'm going to come to you first, Dan, to help me out with this first one, because obviously we're starting off in the States here. ARRL Teachers Institute offer 4 sessions this summer. And these are sessions that are taking place in a couple of locations in Connecticut and Ohio. So, as I say, thoughts on this one, Dan, about, the opportunity to educate with the ARRL?
Yeah, this is actually a fairly good program the ARRL has been doing for many years now. And they invite public school teachers to workshops and teach them about wireless technology. And it's a pretty good program. You know, the only little complaint I have is I wish they'd emphasize amateur radio a little bit more. But overall, this is a pretty good program.
There'll be links, etc., on ICQpodcast.com. I say they're covering areas of Connecticut and Ohio. I'm just wondering, guys, from our European side of things, as I say, is there anything similar to this that we do in Europe? I can't think of anything similar in Ireland. Anything in Germany, Ed, that they might potentially do with this, or your general thoughts on, as I say, maybe potentially doing something along these lines?
Well, not that I have heard of, but I would be incorrect to say definitely not, because I haven't looked at what the DARC is doing in this way. Generally, I think what happens is there's an approach made through whatever contacts of radio amateurs that happen to be teachers, and maybe a local club is brought in to do something to present at the school effectively, but and especially if it's an ISS contact or something like that, which they do quite a bit of. But this ARRL Teachers Institute is actually to teach the normal teachers from the schools about technology in general, and included in that is amateur radio, and then they take that back with them to the school, and hopefully they can build it into their lessons and things. And in a few cases, maybe the amateur radio side comes over there. But I don't know of anything like that in the EU that I've heard of. Back to you, Colin.
It looks like as well they cover participation in contacts with the International Space Station, which I'm sure will be quite a plus side for a lot of kids getting involved, and the teachers bringing back the whole opportunity of us getting involved, because I know a lot of amateurs obviously love seeing the space station go and making contact with the space station, so I can see that being quite a positive there. Leslie and Edmund, I suppose from a UK perspective, anything that you know of that happens in the UK similar to this? I mean, or is it similar to what Ed's saying with Germany? It's normally a club-led thing, isn't it? Working with a school or a teacher that's probably amateur radio focused that way, isn't it?
Well, I do know, I actually live just down the road from Gilwell Park, and I do know they do this type of thing, within the International Space Station when this goes over. I think that the core objective of this is a sort of sparking of the imagination, to get that spark and get people interested. We did used to do something. I know the National Society, the RSGB, used to have a van that went round and had a display which people could, van's the wrong word, but a display that children and young people could have a look at. But unfortunately, that also coincided with our congestion charge, so the whole thing sort of became very uneconomic. I do know schools do this, but it does. I agree, it does need to be a lot more, and it needs to sort of sell amateur radio as the hobby.
Congestion charge says that the Mayor of London in particular likes to find lots of ways of generating revenue of any vehicle he doesn't like, and finds lots of ways of multiplying taxis and fines and God knows what else. So probably a very quick way of getting
so people just say we can't do that anymore, and they stop doing it. It's fully understandable.
Exactly from there. Dan, any thoughts maybe from yourself in relation to maybe how amateur radio might be able to get more entwined with this type of teaching in terms of maybe, migrate maybe more teachers across to amateur radio, or maybe in ways we can get the students maybe more interested in amateur radio?
It's really tough. I've worked in our schools a little bit, and it's just really tough. I think one of the keys is getting the parents involved more. This gets the teachers involved, which is great. But if the parents are involved, then the kids just don't have the opportunities at home. So while this is great, I think we need to also have some kind of a program to educate the parents. So.
Yeah. And probably right too. I was thinking, I was talking to a colleague at work this week, and she was saying how her daughter's heavily getting into the interest on electronics, etc. But when mentioning amateur radio, there was just no correlation between the two for the parent,
right,
as you say, and obviously then started the education process of potentially what it could be for the daughter, to maybe to learn about the radio and that side, electronic side things, and the building, the construction, etc. And did start to maybe whet the appetite to have the conversation, but without, I suppose, me bumping into him in a technology environment, if you like, the whole idea of the two things coming together probably wouldn't have happened. So, certainly, as you say, part of that whole education process, it's not just the teachers, it's the parents, it's about the whole mix of things. And maybe, people thinking of electronics as an opportunity for kids to get involved in all these types of activities, rather than maybe say more traditional 21st century jobs, and not realizing there's a massive desire for these types of people out in the workforce.
Right.
There you go. Says the recruiter that's struggling to get people at the moment in technical. So
Oh yes.
Yes. Welcome to my problems in world, I tell you. Well, we move on to our next story here, and we all obviously know about the issues that are going on in Eastern Europe, and further announcements are being constantly made now, and this one is in relation to the Sepp Group and the removal of Russia and Belarus from that suspension membership. So there is a tentative link across the amateur radio here. Ed, you were explaining this very succinctly to us when we just ran through the news stories before we started recording. And as I say, whilst it's a minor point on amateur radio, if I catch you correctly, it's on a wider communication issue. It obviously causes problems up to and including amateur radio.
Yeah, the CEPT, Conference of Postal and Telecommunications Administrations, is an organisation that has signatories across Europe and in other parts of the world. It basically controls, as its title says, if you like, the interfacing of postal tracks and all telecommunication tracks between the countries that are a part of the organisation. That could come down to the fact that if you now want to send a letter to Russia or Belarus, there's no agreement anymore between the two countries, and therefore you can't send it. Even using the postal system to send business items or products or whatever could be a problem. I mean, I don't know exactly, but they are not just to do with radio communications and amateur radio. We know them in amateur radio through the CEPT agreements, the TR 6101, 6102, and some others, where amateur radio operators can go to any of the signatory countries and operate there without having to apply for a new license for up to 3 months. So when you're on holiday, that means now, no, you can't pop over to Belarus or Russia, not have to then actually apply for a reciprocal license separate from the automatic system. And really, that's an inconvenience, but who's travelling over there at the moment in any case? So it's not a really big one, but it's what's behind this is a request from the European government to all of its organisations, and this isn't part of the EU government, but it's associated with it, to basically put the wall up, to isolate Russia and Belarus. And whether we believe that's right or wrong, that's what they're doing. And there are other things going on from the amateur radio world as well, which Colin may want us to talk about as well. But this particular item of the CEPT, it's done. They've kicked out the Russian Federation and Belarus from the arrangements around post and telecommunications.
Yeah, and as Ed alluded to, we've obviously been covering various stories on this over the last few weeks, either on the website or obviously in your podcast show. We've had, I say, some various bits of feedback, etc., that has come in, and for instance, one from Andy, Sierra November 9, November Lima, India, and he, while suggesting that ham radio should steer clear of politics, he's obviously very upset by the incidents that happened in Ukraine. And obviously, I think there's a passionateness of those that disapprove of what's happening from the Russian side, shall we say. Yeah, they want to, I suppose, show some type of feelings in that way, and obviously things like I suppose the contesting side of things and blocking Russia, etc., from the contesting side of amateur radio is obviously something that some people are very positive towards. We've come across this, and obviously think that the RSGB taking a lead in terms of again putting up that sort of wall to Russia. But on the other flip side is we've also been hearing from people as well who have been saying, well, look, it's you're also punishing the average person, if you like, not the oligarchs, etc., which seem to be targeted by Western sanctions, etc. But you're targeting the normal Joe Soaps, or you're targeting our freedom of information, and to find out what's going on from the other side, and to hear either their story or the dissenters. And about what's going on, and so there's a lot of mixtures of different things between, I think, those on the feedbacks we've been getting and seeing, etc., between those that want to look at ham radio as this wonderful opportunity to communicate across borders, with like-minded friends and colleagues, etc., on the this open platform, and those that I suppose want to in some way show solidarity with their chosen side. And I think it really does split, I suppose, freedom of speech against freedom of expression at the same time, on both ways. And I think it's a real difficult one to certainly debate. I know from my personal opinion, and it's my personal opinion, is the fact that I'm a great believer that sport and stroke contesting shouldn't be affected by politics and governments. And on that basis, removing contesters, etc., from Russia from contests is a little bit unpalatable to me from someone who's competed at a fairly decent level in sport. That to me doesn't seem correct. But at the same time, you want to sort of say that war is bad as well at the same time, and I suppose we walk this very tricky sort of this very tricky pole of opinion, if you like, of where we sit with these things. So yeah, I think it's a very, very tricky one, and I suppose whether or not people are getting it right or wrong is down for discussion. And on that basis, I'll get off my little soapbox by what I think. And Leslie, maybe you might want to say what your thoughts are in relation to, I suppose, the whole aspect of the whole thing that's going on in terms of the communication side of things.
Well, it's very tricky, because if you look back it's certainly from the UK perspective, our license, I think, early 80s, specifically forbade things like discussion on things like politics, religion, and there's a few other bits and pieces as well. Must excuse me, that particular license has long gone in the cupboard somewhere. Also, there was the International Telecommunications Guidelines, Code of Conduct, and all that type of thing. In early 80s, that actually got removed from the license. And most radio amateurs didn't even notice it, but it was removed, and there was a certain amount of disquiet. Understandably, when I'm going to different places around the world, I try not to discuss politics, because that we're there to get on and we're there to enjoy the hobby. Unfortunately, with those things being thrown out, yes, you could discuss what you want, but we're getting to a tricky situation where even on social medias now, it's the governments are trying to get to grips with freedom of expression. Yes, you can say what you like, provided we agree with it, type thing. So it's a very, very difficult tightrope to walk. I know in the States have totally different rules. The emphasis is very much on freedom of expression, but over here we're still trying to get grips with it. Where this will go, I don't know, but radio amateurs, we just want to get on. We want to just do the hobby. I understand in the present circumstances, but it's a very difficult subject. Over to you.
Edmund, I know you're a great fan of a rag chew, let's say, with people and working from there. What's your thoughts in relation to the whole, I suppose, freedom of expression versus freedom of speech? Thoughts on this one? Because, I mean, certainly it does open up a lot of thoughts, doesn't it?
It does. Well, politics arises out of disagreement, and if you did a straw poll amongst a dozen different people as to what, in their opinion, constitutes politics, then chances are you would get a dozen different answers. I think this is a case of damned if you do, damned if you don't. There will be people who will criticise CEPT for doing this. There will be people who will praise them, and if they had taken the opposite approach, the same would apply. So I'm very glad I'm not in charge of the whole thing, because I don't know what the right answer is. Having said all of that, when I first read this, I thought it's probably mainly a symbolic act, because with the exception of Russian and Belarusian amateurs not being able to come to CPT signatory countries and operate, and vice versa, this decision probably doesn't have a great impact on radio amateurs. But following on from what Ed said, a secondary radio amateur effect that hadn't crossed my mind until Ed brought the subject up is QSL cards from bureaus. So we might not be getting so many QSL cards out of Russia in the months and years ahead. But beyond that, I can see very persuasive arguments both ways. I do have an opinion, but my opinion may not be correct. Back to you, Colin.
What's the great saying? You're entitled to. I will fight in my dying breath for you to have an opinion, but I may believe you're fundamentally wrong. But there you go. I'll leave it on. Dan, I'm really interested to know about the American or the North American thought process on this. Is there anything you can shed light on in terms of, I suppose, the thoughts from your part of the world in this whole situation? Because I'd be really interested to know what the general feeling is.
Sure. So, while we're not prohibited from talking about religion and politics, of course, it's not certainly encouraged. And what I would sort of fall back on is that in our regulations, we have the first clause, if you will, in our regulations is the basis and purpose of amateur radio. And one of them is the enhancement of international goodwill. So, having said that,
Here.
yeah, I agree. And I always point this out when I'm talking about ham radio, that at least in our regulations, the U.S. regulations, that's one of the purposes of ham radio. So, having said that, I mean, we don't know what the Russian amateurs think about this war, if they even know that much about it. So maybe this is just a thought that I had while we were discussing this. Maybe we should encourage people to contact Russian amateurs and just say, hey, look, things are bad there, and just make a more human kind of connection there, rather than say, well, no, we can't talk to Russians anymore. That's not a good thing.
Yeah. I definitely agree with you. I mean, certainly, if you open up your mind to more things than you learn more things, don't you? And that from there. So I accept you may not agree with all of us on this topic, but I hope, I say, your mind is open and you consider all, and I say, obviously come to your own conclusions. But as I say, it's great to have recourse and understanding of what's going on. So obviously, our thoughts go to everybody affected in this conflict. But at the same time, as I say, I think echo some of the ideas here. That constant communication, dialogue, understanding is a great way forward.
Colin, can I just jump in? A small correction. Andy's call sign is Sugar Peter 9 November Lima India, not Sugar November 9, as you said. And also an additional thing, the RSGB decision to exclude or to convert any logs submitted to be check logs in any RSGB sponsored contests. Exactly the same decision has been made today by the Danish national organization, the EDR. Exactly the same. The words are the same in the statement, so they've copied it. And also last week we heard CQ magazine again doing something very, very similar with the large contests that they sponsor. So whether we like it or not, that's the way those people are going. Contest organizers, for their sins, have the right to change their rules any way, shape, or way they wish to, even if we don't like it. They have the authority. The CEPT one about excluding the complete or to kicking them out of the CEPT membership was actually not just a committee in the CEPT that decided to do it. It was actually a vote, and the majority of the member countries decided that this was it. So that was a democratically decided decision that the CEPT throw out Russia and Belarus. So, that's what democracies are all about. That's what organizations are all about. So, it's not a, one group that has decided that. It was all of the group. And I also think it's a real mess, this NATO conflict with Russia that's getting played out in the Ukraine. And we are not getting any verifiable independent news. And as I was saying, maybe if there was more conversation between Western and Eastern amateurs and it was allowed to talk about the situation there, then both sides might get a better picture of what's really happening. But I suspect there may be controls in several countries, not just the Eastern ones, for some Western ones as well, where they won't like that kind of conversation on the air.
Exactly.
That's my opinion.
Ladies and gentlemen, where else can you not only get great amateur radio content, comment, opinion, what it be, but research on the fly? Thank you very much, Ed. Appreciate you doing that for us. I really do. So thanks as well, particularly for correcting Andy's call sign. Only fair to give the right call sign out. And so lots of content there, guys. Hope that's of use for you.
And let's hope the conflict comes to an end very soon.
Hear for all involved. We're talking about some of the positive sides of amateur radio. We're heading off to Australia here. North East Victorian Amateur Radio Club has sprung to help here, and floods in Australia. And as I say, we've got another team have come together here. Edmund comes here again. Another great opportunity where, as I say, they've jumped in, and as I say, said not only are we going to come together and help out the local community, but they've also created a fund to help do some repair work as well. So it's a fantastic again a story about amateur radio springing to everybody's help, isn't it?
It is, and if you're in a position to help with this, if you look at the website, not only are they inviting financial donations, but there's also the possibility of donating equipment if you've got some lying around gathering dust that could be of use. So yes, it's a good news story all round, isn't it, Colin?
Exactly. Now, if you're thinking of amateurs who might have some equipment lying around, I might just tip up to a little house in London where there's a sick man at the moment and maybe get rid of a few bits pieces. But we shall see. We shall see. Now, Dan, was that a nervous laugh? Have you got a few bits of kit there hanging around you could send to Australia, or as I say?
Well, I do, but I like, chances are your dad wouldn't even miss some of that. I know I wouldn't if some of my stuff suddenly disappeared.
Let me tell you, I've got everything listed and photographs, so I know exactly what's there.
Oh, man, you're way ahead of me. You're way ahead of me.
Seriously.
Oh, don't.
I know I should. I know I should, but I don't.
Oh, damn. But again, a fantastic story here of, I say, Hams just getting involved, a good group as well, active in the community. We put a link to the media news story. Very quickly they'd already raised $3,000, and they were calling for equipment from the estimated 15,000 amateurs across Australia. So fantastic story, this guys. As I say, of Hams getting involved. Ed, this is your old stomping ground. I can't remember actually how far away you might have been from this part of Australia, but I say these sort of natural events in Australia and the responses seem to be something we hear about regularly, and just a fantastic, as I say, response by our community.
Yeah, I had the honour of living in Australia for 18 years, and I say honour because of the people there. If any disaster happens, be it earthquake, be it fire, be it flooding, anything, people help each other. And this is as much true in the cities as it is out in the countryside, but it's more so in the countrysides. And this particular case, one of the gentlemen involved pushing this, VK2BFC, was that Frank? Sorry, I've got his name wrong anyway. He's actually sat on the border between Victoria and New South Wales, and he's a member of a Victorian club in the Albury part of Albury-Wodonga, and he's got that club helping the people in his state, which is, just over the border, so to speak. But yet the whole of New South Wales, from the border with Queensland all the way down to the south coast, got absolutely hammered over the last couple of months with storms and rain and floods. They haven't been having a good time of it. This is on top of course, COVID and everything else. So it's just absolutely fantastic that this guy's putting all this work in, and the club is putting the work in to get money to help clubs sort themselves out. The other clubs have had masts washed away. They've had their club rooms flooded out and the equipment destroyed. It's a really bad story like that. But yeah, just go and have a look at VK2BFC's QRZ.com page. He's got a beautiful QSL card on there that I'm sure the listeners will spend a little while laughing at, because it gives a lot of the Austrian colloquial expressions and a translation into what you might hear in Oxford English. But great on the guys there. It doesn't surprise me. This is the way the Australian people are, the Australians and the New Zealanders. They look after each other and ask nothing for it. It's a lesson the rest of the world could learn an awful lot from. Back to you, Colin.
Yeah, and I'm going to pop a link to that page. As I say, we'll put that on ICQpodcast.com under this news story, and you'll be able to check out that page there. And just as we're recording this, I went to go do the link, and I can't remember how to do a link direct to someone's QRZ page, so I'll do that in post-production, but it'll be there for you, as I say, when we publish the news roundtable. Okay, now news here that AMSAT has received a grant from the ARDC, as I say. So I'm just going to look across my list of people here to decide who's best person to speak about this. Maybe Dan, you might have some insight into this one for us.
Well, thanks for letting me lead off here. So yeah, this was a $94,000 grant that ARDC gave to AMSAT. and it is actually for the development of the space frame, which will form the basis of a bunch of satellites, hopefully. So we're funding here some basic development, and that's a good thing. Hopefully these satellites are going to be doing the high elliptical orbits, which mean that they'll be accessible for more than like the 10 to 12 minutes that you usually get with these low Earth orbit satellites. So, yeah, it's all good. It's all good.
Yeah, fantastic, as I say, and $94,000. I'd suggest, Edmund, you can do a lot of good with that. Would you agree?
Absolutely. And I'm pleased to hear that the good work that AMSAT does is being supported in this way, particularly if we can get one or two extra FM satellites out of it, because I've been listening for the past week or so, and even during relatively quiet periods, by which I mean early in the morning on weekdays rather than at weekends, the current FM satellites that come over always seem to be really, really busy, with people occasionally transmitting on top of each other, accidentally, hopefully, rather than deliberately. So yes, if we could get one or two more of those in low Earth orbit or high Earth orbit, either way, that's something I'd very much enjoy having a go at, Colin.
No problems at all. No problems at all. I've got some emails. We'll send them for you. No problems at all. Leslie, as I say, obviously great to see funding of the hobby. As I say, I can't remember if you're a satellite man or not, but your thoughts.
I'm not a satellite person. I did it many years ago, but didn't really keep up with it at all. But the one thing I would say is that if radio amateurs want things to happen in the hobby, then organisation need funds, and you either sort of donate it through various schemes, and I'm sure that they know about well-known websites or donations of equipment, and it's just to keep the hobby going. And if they want to do satellite things, well, I think $94,000 is a very generous donation that will go quite some way. But I think it's good. Make things happen, raise some funds. That's what we need to do.
True. I'm gonna pinch a term from another podcast I listen to.
Go on. What is it?
Teams. It's the three teams. Three T's: time, talent, or treasure. Okay, so to keep a project going, if you give your time and your talent, or your time, your talent, or your money, right?
Yeah.
If you don't do one of them threes, you can't complain when something disappears. Okay,
right. Let me write that down. What was the three again?
So time, talent, or treasure.
Talent or treasure.
So again, your choices: chuck them money, give them time, give them your abilities. And then that way, your project, your hobby, your group, whatever it will continue. If you sit back and go, someone else's problem, guarantee everybody else will do the same thing, and it will die.
Nothing will happen.
Nothing will happen. Nothing. And you know what? It doesn't even have to be anything major. If everyone does a little bit, you'd be surprised how much a little bit goes a long way. So that's the thing.
I prefer we have an English. We have an English expression, ka-ching, get the funds going,
Another thing I'd just bring up, since we're talking about AMSAT, is that it's amazing how sophisticated these designs really are. I think we kind of take this for granted now, but it really does take a lot of engineering to put one of these satellites up in the air.
Indeed.
So I just want everybody to sort of keep that in mind.
And I suppose in that case, the amount of effort it takes involved in getting a satellite up and running, there's probably a lot of soft skills that are needed as well. I mean, as in like logistics and those sort of things that need doing and planning.
Yeah.
You got to persuade people to do things,
Yeah, but
why should they do it?
Yeah, but you know what? The old thing as well, even sometimes tipping up and saying, I might not be very good at doing any design work for you, but I can make tea and coffee. Goes down just as well. Let's be honest about it, So don't never knock anything you can do to help a project.
Soft skills are very important.
True. Ed, sorry, we haven't come to you on this news story, and I just wonder if you've got anything to add to this one, and hopefully more than a cup of coffee, but hopefully you've got some thoughts on this one.
Yeah, I've always got thoughts on things. They're my thoughts, and you may not agree with them, but I always got thoughts. Coming back to a comment that Edmund made about the current satellites being very busy, that's positive. That's really good news that people are using them and people are interested. And, we've been drogging on about, the hobby's dying and all the rest of it. And, more and more things we're seeing now, it isn't. It's getting more people on the air, more people, and it's getting more busy. And as condition gets better as well, we'll see even more. But what I was going to say was, rather than additional FM satellites, by having high Earth orbit satellites that are there longer and having them with linear transponders, so you could have maybe 5 or 10 stations on them at the same time. That could be sideband, CW, digital, whatever. I suppose FM to a certain extent as well. It's a question of the bandwidth of which band you use. But that would then give you more capacity to have more QSOs than the simple to use but restricted in capacity FM satellites that we have in low Earth orbit. Or not only those in low Earth orbit, but the ones that Edmund was referring to. So I think high Earth orbit is a good idea. Geostationary would be even better, but I don't think even the ARDC has enough money to pay for one of those. We were very lucky with AMSAT DL getting a place on what is actually a TV transmitting satellite for QO100, and I think we'd all love to have that for the US and another one over the Pacific to make it a full world coverage with amateur radio satellites. But that's not going to happen tomorrow. And this work that AMSAT North America are doing at the moment in getting the high Earth orbit satellites, and very importantly, the standardized frame, the 3U standardized frame, is essential for everything that goes forward. So good on them and good luck, and let's hope we see progress happening fairly quickly.
Oh, true. Well, listeners might have seen the news story last weekend of the passing of Giles Reid, who was the technical editor of RADCOM. Leslie, I know you know Giles very well, and as I say, obviously, our thoughts obviously with his friends and family. But what were your thoughts and your memories of working with Giles?
Where do we start? Unique character, unique. He was the technical editor of RADCOM for the RSGB and worked very, very closely with Elaine Richards, the managing editor. And Giles's job was, we got ideas from the amateur radio community. Somebody has an idea for an article, and we look at this, we scratch heads, and we used to have fierce discussions over these things. Yeah, it was great. And then try and, from that article, that rough article, get something that that was publishable, that really put across what that person was trying to do in that particular idea. And I think Giles was very, very good at this. Putting a magazine together is a difficult job. It's not easy, and I think that Giles did it very, very well indeed. Also, working with the volunteers, I got on with him very, very well, and he had direct access to the technical forum at the time. Very, very sad that he's silent key, but a lot of the good work at the time, I'm thankful for Giles because he had expertise I didn't have, and that's what makes the show work. And thank you, Giles. It was good, mate. Cheers.
Yeah. Ed, you also had workings with Giles as well, I believe.
Yeah, I think my first contact with Giles is probably about 7 years ago, in relationship to the GB2RS News Bulletin. I've been publishing that podcast, the GB2RS podcast, for the last 12 years now. And Giles was, for most of that time, my main contact to go to if we had some issues or queries or anything else. And he was also always the person that got an answer and got it in a reasonable time frame. He just came over, even just through emails. I've never met him, but even just through emails, he came over as a very approachable person. And if he committed to do something, it would be done. He would make sure it got done. And those people are worth their weight in gold. And he will be very sorely missed by the RSGB. I know he had been ill for a while, but the cancer that he died from was only found or confirmed a few days before he died. So his passing is also a shock for everybody who knew him, and condolences to his family, his colleagues, and his friends. I hope I'm speaking for the whole of the ICQ podcast here, that we feel with you, and we've all lost a very special person. Vale to Giles Reid. He won't be replaced. He can't be.
Yeah, I'm sure the amateur radio community, along with all, as our colleagues here at the ICQ podcast, echo those words, and as of course, our thoughts and prayers for Giles and his family, friends, etc. So, yeah, thanks for everything you've done for the hobby, Giles. We all appreciate your work. So we move to the rounding up part of our news roundtable now. And Edmund, I'm going to start with yourself. I know you're back from Hamzilla. Must have been great to be back out at a radio rally. And I know from pictures I saw, you found a bargain or two. So hopefully you enjoyed the show. What else have you been up to over the last few weeks?
In terms of making amateur radio contacts, I think I've had about 3. I've been practicing Morse code every day, and I'm struggling. I'm finding it very, very difficult, especially the head copy side of it. I'll decode a few letters in my brain, and then there'll be one that I don't instantly recognize, and I might have to think about it for a few milliseconds, but that then seems to derail my whole train of thought, and my brain scrambles, and then I miss about the next dozen characters. So it's tough going, but I'm going to stick with it. I'm not going to give up, and I'm going to get there eventually. So that's been taking up most of my time.
Hey, if I can just interject one thought here, when you, just from my own experience, when you miss a character, just let it go. And I know that's tough to do, but that's the whole key.
Absolutely. As you say, Dan, knowing that is one thing, actually doing it is a different thing altogether. But
just to ask a question there, Dan, sorry, and cut across your bit here, Edmund. But Dan, is that where, when you're writing down your letters and you miss one, then you let the mind's eye sort of fill in the gap for you? Is that sort of the technique idea? Is that, or
so the analogy I make is, when you're talking to someone, you don't necessarily hear every word they say, right? But you fill it in, and of course that can sometimes lead to bad things. But it's the same in Morse code. When you miss a character, just let it go.
There you go. There's some advice. Sorry, Edmund, carry on. Sorry, I had to ask the question.
That's all right. So I was very pleased to attend Hamzilla in Kent for the first time ever last weekend, and it was a really good day out. The last rally I went to before that was the Canvey Island one in February 2020. So it was only 2 years and 1 month during the COVID pandemic that I hadn't been to a rally, but it felt so much longer than that. And I was really desperate to go to one after all this time. And Hamzilla was really nice. The venue is large, and if you go next year, leave plenty of time, because the Discovery Business Park is a large campus, and Martin tried to park in about, I think, 3 different car parks before we actually found the correct one. So if that's the same next year and you're travelling, leave plenty of time to find the correct parking spot. But once we were in there, it's a great venue. It was spacious, and there were a lot of visitors, but not too many. And there were a lot of stalls as well, but not too many. So that was quite nice, because we didn't have that thing that you have at some rallies where you can barely see what's on a stall because there's a crowd about 2 or 3 layers thick, and you try and look over their shoulders and you can't actually see the things that are on sale. So it was busy, but not too much, which I thought was actually quite nice, and it also helped in terms of social distancing. The other thing that was nice was that there were individuals, specialist interest groups, radio clubs, and small businesses there. For example, Mike Seacom of Seacom Antennas, Worked All Britain Group by Lara, the British Young Ladies Amateur Radio Association. There was a stall there from people who would make and engrave call sign badges for you. But the whole thing wasn't crowded out by any of the major emporiums. So some people might say that's a good thing, some people might say it's a bad thing, but the fact that it wasn't dominated by these major dealers allowed a good attendance by smaller groups who otherwise might not get a look in. And generally speaking, the items on sale were things that you might actually want to buy. It was, on the whole, decent second-hand stuff rather than junky second-hand stuff, if you see what I mean. So really enjoyed it, and I'm sure Hamzilla 2023 will be happening, and I look forward to going to that as well. And last but not least, not amateur radio, but radio in general, because of the events going on in Ukraine, I've gone back to doing quite a lot of broadcast radio listening, some of which has been on HF. For example, the BBC have reintroduced transmissions from the Wooferton transmission site in the UK in the 49 and 19 metre bands for a few hours per day. But most of the action has been on long wave and medium wave. So if you're in Europe and if you can speak Ukrainian or Russian, 153 kilohertz from Romania, 225 kilohertz from Poland, and 216 kilohertz from the south of France, which up until last year was carrying RMC, Radio Monte Carlo, before they switched that off. Those frequencies have been carrying transmissions in Ukrainian and Russian for that part of the world. Up on the medium wave band, the frequencies that used to carry Radio Mayak during the Soviet era and up until about 2010, a lot of them have been reactivated. The transmitter sites in Ukraine carrying local programming. So I think 549 kilohertz is off the air, but 657, 1278, 1404, I'm going from memory here, so this might not be quite right, have all had programming on. So if you speak any of those languages and you're in Europe, or you can access an SDR in Europe, then all of that is well worth a listen, as is 4625 for the buzzer, to see if it's being jammed by people playing Boney M, Rasputin, or similar fare over top of it. Back to you, Colin.
Thanks a lot there, Edmund. Well, following on from what you mentioned about Hamzilla, I can confirm that a smallish ICQ podcast team are committed to going to UK Hamfest this far out. So we have hotel rooms booked, and myself, Martin Butler, Edmund, and Chris Howard will all be in attendance at UK Hamfest, which is slightly later this year. I think it's the weekend of the 14th and 15th October. Can't remember the exact date off the top of my head, but it's that middle Friday, Saturday of October. As I say, so we will have a team in attendance. Others may come on board close to the time, but as I say, we're going to make a commitment to get back out a bit more, obviously, as the year goes on, as events take on board. So we hope to go from there. Leslie, what about your dear self? What have you been up to over the last few weeks that you can let us all know about?
Oh, well, I had a gentleman come up to the club and very, very kindly said donated some radios to the club, some network radios, and I've been working on those. I've never played with them before, and I've got to say they drove me nuts trying to log on. Trying to find the passwords and trying to find the logon details. And okay, I ain't got the logon details, so I've got to try some other method. And I was pulling my hair out trying to get these things to work. I did eventually. I mean, they are Android based, but yeah, so is my phone. My phone's a lot easier to operate than this thing. So, but yeah, we eventually got it up and running on. What was that? Was Echo Link? That was the main one we used, and Zello. We got it working on that as well. But yeah, it's all fun and games. But that's what we've been getting up to. But like I said, they're all up and running now. But I did sort of go through a bit of a learning process, which is what it's all about, really. Over to you.
True. I remember playing around with one of those things and seeing one at a rally and buying one at a rally and then getting out of the box and trying to program it and realising that it only had a little 3-inch or 4-inch screen, and then you realise how big your finger is in comparison to a touch screen.
Trying to put the password in and you get the next letter instead. It's insane.
Yeah, and I mean, of course, I come from an IT background, so we say, very long passwords, multiple characters, uppercase, lowercase, special characters, and then you're trying to work on that sort of screen, and then you start using words you shouldn't use on the air when you're trying to do it, and it starts getting very frustrating. And I'm happy to say,
that was the process.
Yep. So you done better than me. I sold mine off. I got as much as I could for it and sold it. I tell you, it went. I tell you. But there you go. Oh, bless. Ed, in Germany, I know you've got an event planned this week, and what other things have you been up to?
Okay, well, first of all, following on from your mention that the ICQ podcast team will be at the UK National Hamfest in October, I will certainly be at Friedrichshafen.
Yes.
In, oh my goodness, is that May or June? It's June.
Is it 24th, 26th of June, I think, if I remember rightly?
Yep.
Yeah. I still can't find a cheap flight. I am desperate to try and get out for that if I can, but the flights are astronomical from Ireland. But I keep searching, hoping I'll get a cheap flight somewhere. So you never know. If I can get there, I will. But it's looking unlikely. But I am very, very jealous you're getting to go to that one.
Well, it's less than 2 hours drive down the road for me, so it's my local Hamfest. So I'm spoilt in that way. Okay, but what else have we been doing? I've been out, and that's what I'm planning tomorrow. The SOTA and HEMA activation. So HEMA is similar to the SOTA system, but it's for mountains and hilltops with a lower prominence between 100 and 150 meters. On that point, though, there is going to be an International HEMA Day on the 2nd of April. So if anybody's interested in taking part of that, and want to find details of HEMA is at hema.org.uk website and find various details there. But there's no rules or anything for this International HEMA Day. It's just get on either as a chaser or an activator on that day and get as much activity going as possible. I'll probably be taking one of my new antennas out for that day. I've been working on some portable antennas, as you've probably heard on previous ICQ podcasts. I've got the old VP2E, the vertically polarized 2-element wire antennas out again that I built pre-COVID or at the start of COVID, and still trying to get some sense out of those to find out how best to tune them and operate them. And in the meantime, I've also built some vertical Moxon antennas for the HF bands as well, in these cases for 15 and 10 meters. And as Solar Cycle 25 is getting better and better every day, it won't be long before I'll be trying those out from a summit somewhere. Hopefully we get no more storms. I've got my home antenna systems all sorted out now. I remember from the last ICQ that I was on, I said I was finishing off there. I had to replace a couple of the masts and the wire and things. The other quite important thing is I'm making great progress on clearing up the cellar workshop. I've got a room in the cellar that I use as a workshop, and it ended up looking quite a mess with stuff everywhere. So I'm getting lots of things sorted into boxes and labelled, and I feel quite happy about that. But the other thing is, I also took part in a trivia quiz last weekend where the ICQ podcast team took on a team from Ham Radio Workbench. Battle of the Podcasts. Unfortunately, we lost 21-19, but it was all good fun. It will be published, and the details of that will go up on both teams' websites once it's available on YouTube. And maybe have Dan mention what his thoughts were of that as it comes down to him. Edmund was also part of our team, and Bill Barnes, also who's not on this week's podcast here, also did a sterling job for us, all three of you, and they pulled me along in the way somewhere. So that's it from my side. Back, and I think it must come over to Dan now. Back to Colin first, though.
Epic job, guys, for taking part in there. And the most important thing is obviously is that bonding with our fellow podcasters, as I say. So fantastic effort there. Dan set up nicely for you. I was like, set it up nicely for you, Dan. So what have you been up to, and hopefully enjoyed the quiz.
Well, I did, and that was a lot of fun. Unfortunately, we did lose, but actually, that's the star of our team turned out to be Bill Barnes. He got a lot of questions right in the DX and DXpedition category that I don't think any other of us had any clue as to what the correct answer was. But we'll give kudos to Bill for being the star of our team. And Ed's mentioned the better band conditions. Oh, the band's conditions have been great here lately, and been working a fair amount of DX myself. In fact, a couple of nights ago, I worked in MI0 in Northern Ireland. So there you go. If you were on 30 meters, I could have worked you, Colin.
If I was north of the border, and I have been recently as well. So that certainly whets the appetite.
All right. So and also we mentioned Hamfest. I'm getting ready, of course, as part of my job here, getting ready to go to a bunch of Hamfests. We'll be at Hamvention in May. Plus, we're headed to, a group of us are headed to DEF CON, which isn't totally a ham radio, but they have what they call a ham radio village there. And I'll actually be teaching a one-day tech class there at DEF CON in August in Las Vegas. And then also in August is Ham Exposition, which is up in the Northeast. I'll be going there. There was talk of sending a group to Friedrichshafen, actually, and I think they're still planning on it, but I don't think I'm going to be a part of that trip. But ARDC might be appearing at Friedrichshafen. So that's about it from here. Lots of things always going on, but it's getting to be Hamfest season, and I'm gearing up for all that.
Exactly. Well, it sounds as always exciting times, and it's great to hear you guys all doing all different various things and whetting the appetite for everybody, as I say, that listens to the show. As I mentioned, we expect to have Martin back in the chair in our next episode in a fortnight's time as he continues his recovery. And say, if you want to reach out to him, I know he's listening in on the digital group. So I suggest going to digitalgroup.icqpodcast.com, and you'll be able to find ways of contacting him via all the various digital modes through our network there, our Peter network. And as I say, you can send your wishes to him directly for his speedy recovery and his return to the show, or you could tell him about how great a job I'd done and tell him not to bother turning up in a fortnight's time. The choice is yours. As I'm saying to people, I can only be blasé about it because we're 2 years into this now, and I'm a lot less worried about it now than I would have been 2 years ago. So I can be a bit more blasé and a bit more humorous about it. But yeah, so that for now. But as I say, so yeah, feel free to reach out to Dad, and as I say, let him know. As I say, you're thinking of him, and as I say, wish him a speedy recovery. As I say, I'm sure like we all are as well. So yeah, hopefully we'll be back with us in a fortnight's time. So no problems at all. Right, well, I'm going to thank my colleagues this episode for joining us on the News Roundtable. As Leslie, Golf Zero, Charlie, India, Bravo, as you said, Cash in Bank. Ed, DD5 Lima Papa, Edmund, Mike Zero, Mike November Golf, and Dan Kilo Bravo 6 November Union. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us here on the News Roundtable. Look forward to it. And as I say, I bid you guys 73s as we head across to our News in Brief, then on to our feature. So 73s, guys, and thanks a lot for joining us this part of the show.
Cheerio.
7-3, Colin. Great job.
7-3.
Keep your amateur ham radio podcast advert free by donating less than a length of coax. Visit www.icqpodcast.com/donate now. For all the news, links and information, visit www.icqpodcast.com.
And now it's time to have a look at the news in brief with me, Colin M6BRY. Start off with just a notice, really, more than anything else. Just let you know that this weekend, as we release the show on the 27th of March, the clocks in UK and the EU go forward 1 hour. So I say that just let you know it's obviously the daylight saving times, or British summer time as it's called, and say these clocks will be in place for that time until the end of October. So I say probably just something to be aware of if you're entering contests and competitions. I say the clocks go forward this weekend. The RSGB have announced that the National Radio Centre has reopened. It's well worth a visit if you're visiting the Bletchley Park complex. As I say, so they've had to have some brief closures recently due to, unfortunately, some volunteer unavailability due to the COVID illness. But they're back open again 7 days a week. So if you're calling into the Bletchley Park area, it's well worth a visit. Call into the RSGB Radio Centre while you're there. As I say, you can meet the guys there and have a chat with the volunteers and see the work they're doing promoting amateur radio to the wider audience that visit the Bletchley Park complex. Durrant mentioned in our news roundtable, HEMA, which is an interesting alternative to SOTA, is now 10 years old and having now spread out across, a lot of Europe and into Australia. The 10th anniversary is going to receive international recognition with an International HEMA Day. It's going to take place on the 2nd of April 2022. So you can activate and get some very attractive certificates for taking part in that event. And as I say, that event on the 2nd of April, you can find more information at hema.org.uk. We'll put a link to that on the ICQ podcast webpage for you. People news here now for you. The RSGB have announced the resignation of board director David Hills, Golf 6 Papa Yankee Foxtrot. The RSGB announced that due to personal circumstances, David's resigned as a RSGB board director. He's been in several projects, including work within the Spectrum Forum, and the board would like to thank David for his contributions and wish him well in the future. It was. Not only was it EMC work he was doing, but other areas as well in the spectrum in relation to propagation studies and amateur radio development. Thanks, David, for your volunteering to the RSGB, and we wish you well in your future endeavours. Now we head over to our features episode. This episode's feature is a report on Hamzilla 2022 by Chris Howard, Mike Zero, Tango Charlie Hotel. As always, hope you enjoy.
And now, what you've all been waiting for, this episode's feature from the ICQ podcast.
Okay, we're at Hamzilla 2022 down here in Kent. I'm joined by Mike from CCOM. Mike, how are you doing?
I'm a very tired man, Chris. How are you? You're looking really well, mate, to be honest.
Not too bad, thanks. We last saw you, I think, at the National Hamfest. Must have been, 2.5 years ago now?
I think, September, wasn't it? 3 years?
Wow. So, you're here today, you've got your aerials, you've got loads of aerials for sale.
Yeah.
obviously always popular with your things that you sell. How's today been for you?
It's been a busy one. A lot busier than last times. I've got a lot more antennas now.
So, what, bigger range?
Yeah, bigger range, same frequencies, still only down to 6 metre, 2 metre, 4 metre. Yeah, a lot of dipoles, white fiberglass sticks, scanning antennas and so on.
Yeah, what's been popular?
2 metre band actually. It was 4 metre at the last event we was at, wasn't it? But yeah, 2 metre today.
Now, little bird tells me you've been a busy boy for the last couple of weeks.
What little bird was that? Was that Andy?
Well, possibly. We might bring Andy in a minute. But tell us about what's been going on.
Well, I wasn't going to come today because I just didn't have time to get the antennas made. And I spoke to Andy, who stood next to us. So we must bring Andy in. So 1 second, let's just bring Andy in. So Andy, you're from the Dover Amateur Radio Club?
That's correct, yeah.
And what's your involvement today?
Well, organising. This has been on the cards for some time. Obviously, we had to cancel for the COVID, and that was a bit of a problem for us. We had to cancel at short notice for 2020. 2019 was the first event that we had here, and we've managed to pull it together today. But I think overall it's gone rather well.
Yeah.
Some of the support from the traders, like Mike from Seacom Antennas, Rocket Radio and various others, we couldn't have done it without them, and I think that everybody's enjoyed their attendance. I know that Mike's had a bit of a crowd around his stall today, so he's obviously generated a lot of interest on aerials.
We've come at the very last minute because we've been so busy with And I don't know what I always find with Andy is that, with Mike, is that he's coming to his stand and he's around the back building things. He's got his little drill out, he's got his screwdriver out, he's got his hacksaw out, and he's building.
I haven't had my breakfast yet, Chris.
And what time is it now? It's about 2:30?
I think it's finished now at the hotel, but yeah, that's been a good day, hasn't it?
I think it has been.
You've worked really hard, haven't you, Andy?
Go on, let's put Andy back on.
Yeah, I mean, in the planning stages, it's been hard. It has been difficult trying to get everybody. There's been a lot of uncertainty about the event and whether it can actually take place. But I'm glad that we managed to push on ahead, and the COVID lockdown and restrictions ended just at the right time for us. To be perfectly honest, I couldn't have done it without the team of volunteers. They've dedicated so much time to this over the course of, certainly over this weekend, and in the planning stages from Dover Amateur Radio Club.
Tell us a little bit about the venue. It's a huge place we're at.
Yeah, this is, we've stumbled across this by accident and it's really worked well. I've got a good relationship with the Discovery Park. It used to be the Pfizer site.
Oh, okay.
Most people are familiar now with Pfizer. And and I've just managed to secure this, and I'll have this now every year. So
Excellent.
This is an annual event.
I mean, it's a huge place. We're in a huge hall. I mean, there's lots of bits that we're not using here because it's such a massive place. Parking's pretty good.
Yeah.
It's quite easy to get to. So
there's parking for 4,500 cars.
That should be enough.
Yeah, and on the venue, the aim is next year I'll be able to use the upper floors. I can actually use. I could have used them today.
Yeah.
But I felt it was better to just use this area. But next year, who knows? We'll see.
Excellent. So back on to Mike. I believe last time we spoke, you were going to do some online stuff, but I don't think it quite happened, did it? Or it didn't quite.
It went on, and then we had a little baby, me and the wife, and we bought a new house.
So life got in the way.
Life got in the way, Chris. Yes, it's been a busy one. It's just calming down now. I wasn't probably going to start antennas until next year, but Andy was nearly in tears when I said I wasn't coming. So
Andy's bet you're on.
Andy's basically ruined my life this year. Yes, he's been on the phone every week. He rings me about 1 a.m. every night. Might get the antennas done. But no, he's a good lad.
And so I see you got. I mean, I guess you've sold a lot of stock today, but you've got some stock left over. So I'm guessing that's going to go online.
It's going to go online. Yeah, hopefully the website will be up this week.
And what's the address?
It's almost
Andy?
ready. It's ccom.co.uk.
Cool.
So
Okay.
it's all there ready to go. I just ran out of time.
And just quickly tell us the range of things that you've got, just for those folks that are not familiar with CCOM.
We haven't got any HF stuff. We only go down to 6 metres. 2 metre, 4 metre, 6 metre. There's a load of scanning antennas on there, military scanning. I've got a load of hardware going on as well for people who want to make their own antennas.
Okay.
Brackets, gamma matches for dipoles, all sorts of stuff I've got the moulds for. So that should be a good little number on there, because you don't see much of that about anymore.
Sure.
You know, like decent hardware. So yeah, hopefully that'll do well.
But I think last time we spoke, you got quite a bit of equipment to build aerials. I think you'd sort of got some jigs and things and some injection. Is it injection moulding kit you've got, that sort of thing?
Yeah, injection moulding machines. Yeah, I've got an additional machine now because the dipoles were taking me about, in between injections. You know, I've not got a massive machine. Had to wait about 8 minutes for the plastic to heat up.
Oh, okay.
So I've got a second machine now, so I can sort of churn one out every 4 minutes. So if you get quicker, you crimp the dipoles inside. You solder the plugs on into the machine, and out they come. And it's just
I have to say, the one that you sold me 2.5 years ago is still up on a pole, no issues with it whatsoever.
It's not fallen down and killed
Not fallen down yet, no.
Good.
No, it's still looking good.
They're nice, yeah. I like my dipole.
Yeah, and your J-pole, I think that's the one that's a big seller, isn't it, as well, I believe?
Yeah, the J-poles, I've got a lot of people asking, but they just take so long to make.
Well, they've got one behind you now. I hadn't realised just how. I guess that's one for what
that's
is that for?
6 metres.
6 metres.
That's 4.5 metres long from the bracket, and then you've got another 800 mil mounting section. So yeah, it's about 5
It's a big bit. I hadn't realised quite until you got one out of the bag and put one together just how big these things are.
Yeah, the neighbours love me tuning them up all day long in the garden. So yeah. I've got to get more of the J-poles out the door because so many people are asking.
Well, I can imagine there's a fair bit of labour involved in putting that together.
And that's the problem with it, Chris, is they're time consuming basically.
And are you still working full time as well as doing this?
Yes, plus the baby.
Yeah.
I've been on the sofa for about a month because she nicks my patch in the bed. So I'm a tired man. So
I think what we're saying is, guys, if you want to get one of the Seacom aerials, do it now because it might be that the next batch might not be around for a while. Is what you're saying, maybe? Yeah.
I've got to look at a way of making them a bit quicker. Let's put it that way. But the quality's there. Let's put it that way. I
agree. Certainly, the one that you sold me is spot on. So that's really good.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. If so, just remind me the website and perhaps just spell it because Seacom, it's CEE.
Yeah, it's a tricky one, isn't it? I didn't think that through very well when I set it up, did I? CEECOM.co.uk.
Thank you. And that's where. So that'll be up online fairly soon.
It's on now. There's it's on there, some pictures and that, and there's a form to fill in, waiting list for the J-poles.
Got it. Perfect.
Which is about as long as my arm at the minute, but
you'll get there.
Yeah. But yeah, it's been a good day here, hasn't it? It's been busy.
Yeah, I think it's been pretty busy. Yeah, Andy. Yeah. Final words from Andy. Anything in the future? They say next year we're going to be back.
Yeah, there'll be a date released in the next sort of 3 or 4 days for the next event, and it's on Hamzilla, HAMZILLA.UK, Hamzilla.uk.
Beat me to it.
Yeah, we'll get there with the date in about, I would safely say a week. We'll be releasing the day.
So this will be for the same sort of time next year, I'm guessing, is it?
It'll be in March, and we'll be booking you again. So
excellent. We'll see you then, guys. Listen, it's been. Thank you very much for the chat, and we'll see you next year.
Thank you.
Brilliant.
Cheers. Thank you, guys. Cheers. Okay, so we're here at Hamzilla 2022 down in Kent. I'm joined by Andy from SDR Play. Hi, Andy.
Hi, how you doing?
Not too bad, thanks. And it's been a couple of years. Obviously, we've had the pandemic, and none of us predicted that. So we've not been to. This is the first rally that I've been to in probably 2.5 years. How have things been at SDR Play, Andy?
Yeah, it's been a very difficult, interesting time. It's I was last here. They had their first Hamzilla 3 years ago, and we had a really, really great reception here. And it was kind of a bit of a shock to not be able to come back until now. But it's been very difficult in some respects, not being able to kind of get out and do these sort of things. So getting customer feedback and working on stuff has been very difficult. The actual development side's not been too difficult because it's sort of, most of us are working from home, so that hasn't really changed very much. But the manufacturing side, we've really had some struggles, as most people who deal with manufacturing have.
Yeah, I think you were saying to me earlier that the components, there's been a bit of a component shortage, and I guess that's affected production. But it sounds like you're kind of getting back on track there.
We are getting on top of it now, for sure. It was quite difficult. Different components had kind of some fairly ridiculous lead times, and it's just been a kind of a path that we've had to go down and sourcing from different places, and it's been quite a process. Luckily for me, I'm focusing on the software side. I've not been involved too much of it, but yeah, my hat's off to the guys that have navigated this. It's been very quite difficult time.
But I'm right in saying that you still manufacture the product here in the UK?
Yeah, so it's all still manufactured in the UK, and that was important to us. It's been difficult to do that. Going forward, we're still looking to do that. That may affect prices and things like that, but it is that's just something that we'll just have to keep an eye on. You know, we've sort of had to swallow a lot of the cost of components that have been going around the world. But yeah, it's just been a very difficult process that the guys have really brilliantly found a way through. You know, because without products,
yeah,
we're nothing. So
and I see today you've had for sale the RSP 1A and the RSP Duo.
Yeah, we've had the guys have done a great job, and they've got me 1As, DXs, and Duos to sell. And
so for those folks that aren't familiar with the SDR Play range, just briefly take us through the current range.
So we've got three in the current lineup. We've got three. We've got the 1A, which is the base model, single input, and the DX is the mid-range device, which has got a special mode below 2 megahertz, which is our high definition mode, and then the Duo, which is the dual tuner, which is the top device for either diversity reception or for doing two completely independent things at the same time. And it's interesting. They've all had probably about the same amount of interest today, which is
excellent.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
I remember when we spoke last time. I think you were at the time when you were kind of promoting the Duo and the diversity receiver. I think was the new thing that had just sort of come out at the time. How well has that been received? Pardon the pun.
Yeah, no, it's been very good. I think we had when we first did the Duo, we focused a lot of the demos around diversity to show the benefits of it, and I think that there are. If you go on YouTube, there's a lot of people now that are just doing great diversity demos themselves. So we don't have to kind of do that now. It's great. The great thing about this is when the community picks up on something and they just sort of run with it, and you're not having to kind of continually sort of say to people, this stuff does work, sort of thing. It's brilliant just to see the community videos, to see how people are using these products, and the diversity reception has been received very
very well.
Yeah, very well.
Now, you mentioned about the community. Do you still get a lot of requests for new features? Is that where you get a lot of your inspiration from for the future of the product?
I mean, I found these events very interesting personally, because I get it's really where I mainly get a lot of the feedback as to what people find good and bad about the product. So the last couple of years has been quite difficult. We've done some online events and some Zoom calls, but it's never really quite the same. You know, you can't kind of both stand around a screen and point and say, why does it do this and why doesn't it do that. So today has been fantastic. I've been able to sort of get back out and get that feedback. But we've still been sort of receiving a lot of requests for features.
Sure.
And at the moment, I'm focused on the next release of Uno, which is going to be sort of the last. It'll be the last version before our major cross-platform release.
And I believe that's the version 2 that's coming out. That's the big release.
That'll be the big jump. Cross-platform. We've already started working on it. We kind of know how we're going to do it and how it's what it's going to look like. We're taking a lot of the feedback from what people have said about how the way that Uno works, and we're trying to get the best of what Uno currently does, with maybe some making it more intuitive in the way that it does it.
Sure. Okay. And you mentioned about cross-platform, and today you were telling me there are some developments already in the Mac space and some of the other architectures of. Currently, obviously, it's for the PC and.
So Mac already has applications like Cubic, SDR. We've recently started looking at some other applications like SDR++, SDR Angel, Spark SDR. And what we've been doing is we've been doing some work on the driver for ARM support. And so we had a lot of people who were trying to get our stuff working on Windows on ARM, primarily Mac users of virtual machines. And at the same time, we had some Windows 11 users who were struggling with the driver because there were some Windows 11 changes that meant that the driver wouldn't work in certain circumstances. So put those two together and we've come up with a cross-platform WinUSB driver that works now on x86, x64 and ARM64. So the benefit of that is now means that SDR Uno will run on a Mac M1 in a virtual machine on Windows, and that will also mean that Windows on any other ARM-based system should now also work as well.
Interesting, other ARM systems.
So there's some interesting times ahead. I mean, this isn't going to stop. This isn't a substitute for what we're doing cross-platform.
Sure,
it's just a kind of another interesting offshoot, I would say.
Got it. And I think last time you were just introduced, actually no, you've been introduced for a while now, but you've got this idea of having plugins and community plugins. And I think last time I updated my SDR Uno, a whole bunch of plugins appeared. So what's been going on there?
So there's been a great community that's appeared around the plugin system. We've got some plugins from the likes of Black Cat Systems, Eric Cottrell. There's just there's a number of people that are involved. Jan van Katvik's done a whole raft of plugins, so what we're trying to do is we're trying to sort of get them together in either an installer or some area where they're easily accessible for people. And we did some plugins, and we know that there's some other plugins that are coming down the line as well. Some really good stuff, some WeatherFax stuff that's coming, and it's just been an amazing. It's really done what we hoped it would do.
It's nice that other people are supporting, and enhancing the product that you've written or you created.
There was clearly a bottleneck in development with SDR Uno, and the only way we could really see of alleviating that in the short term was to kind of give the community a way of being able to develop for it.
Cool.
In a way that they didn't have to worry about the hardware support. So Uno takes care of the hardware support, and the plugin developers can just write decoders, and we've got some other accessibility type plugins. So it's just been
and it's nice that you're doing it within the SDR Uno interface. So I know there are other products that can do things like you get decoding, DMR, that sort of thing, but that can cause a lot of fiddling around, whereas this is actually kind of built into the product, which makes it, I think, much easier to use.
The idea was to kind of even though these are sort of separate applications, it was to give you the impression that you're kind of still within the framework of SDR Uno. And so we don't promote anything that we haven't tested ourselves, and so if it comes from us, that it will plug in and
it's got
just will work.
A level of quality about it that you've tested it and it works.
And so anybody that's developing plugins now or has got an idea or to do one, we've got a Facebook group specifically for plugin developers. And we have conversations with plugin developers about the best way to kind of go about doing what level they kind of interact with the IQ stream, say if they need to, and it's just it's been great to see that, and I hope it continues to grow, and we see a lot more plugins.
Cool. Before we finish up, Andy, tell me about the other guys at SDR Play. I know we've got Mike and Steve, and what's been going on? Are you still creating the videos, still doing the events and things?
Yeah, so it's essentially still the same guys. We've got Mike and Steve in the States who have really been doing a lot of like Zoom meetings and videos and testing of software, and they're doing a lot of the sort of interacting with people on Facebook and other forums. But it's essentially the same guys.
Because I know there's a lot of content up on YouTube, for example, about how to do things with the product, which is really useful.
The thing that I keep getting told is that how much content we produce for how few people we are. And I think that's just it just comes because particularly Steve and Mike are really plugged into the whole community.
Yeah.
And they kind of know the content that the community wants to see. And so it's great that they can do that,
Cool.
John and I chip in where we can. John's been doing some stuff on antennas, so there's been some videos about that, comparing different antennas and stuff like that, which the Duo is great for, because you can see the effects of the two antennas at the same time.
Yeah.
It's So there's lots of good stuff. I mean, it's been a terribly tough time for people, and it probably will be a tough time going forward. It seems to us that a lot of people are sort of sat indoors, and they've picked up radio as for either to start with, or they've gone back to it.
Absolutely, and certainly generally in amateur radio has been a huge number of people got their licence over lockdown. You can do it online now, which is fantastic. And we've certainly, I'm also a member of a club as a club secretary, and we've seen a lot of interest in amateur radio over the last couple of years. So that's been it's good to see that's also filtering down into your world.
Yes, it has. Yeah, I've met a few people from some different clubs today, asking for us to kind of get back out, and so we'll be doing a bit more of that. I'm kind of looking. This has kind of given me This is the bit of a nudge, really, to kind of get back out into the community and see what's going on. A lot of good stuff. There's a lot of interest here today. I was quite surprised.
That's good. That's really good. So Andy, look, thank you very much. If people want to get more information about SDR Play or buy one, or where's the best place to go?
Yeah, sdrplay.com, best place for all the official information. You can either buy from us directly on there, or there's links to all the distributors, so that you're getting a legitimate device. Because we have had a few problems with some fake devices, and some people have actually bought empty boxes. They turn up and there's absolutely nothing in them, and I feel very sorry for people like that. But if you always come to us, you don't have to buy from us. You can go, but there's always links on there to the official distributors. That's the best way to go, and then you'll know that you're getting a quality product that will be fully supported.
Andy, thank you very much once again, and we'll no doubt see you at a future event. Thank you very much.
Great stuff. Thanks a lot.
The ICQ podcast. Come for a moment. Stay for an hour.
Well, guys, I really hope you enjoyed our review of the Hamzilla Hamfest, and it's great to get out and about and back out at the show. So, as I say, guys, I really hope you enjoy that flavour we're bringing to you from the southeast of England. Well, as always, it's great to have your feedback here on the ICQ podcast, and we start off with a quick note from Andre, VE3 Whiskey Zulu Whiskey, and just thanking us for the website and the show, and finds it interesting and knowledgeable. So thanks a lot for your feedback there. Now, you remember in the News Roundtable, we commented a lot about the situation in Eastern Europe at the moment, and James Barton pops the mail after we finished recording that section. James's call sign is K5 Juliet Tango Bravo. He starts off a message saying, I think you guys need to consider what's driving your position on blocking Russian hands from participating in contests. Well, James, we don't run any contests, so we're not guilty personally. As I say, that's to do with the contest organisers. But he then goes on to discuss, again, obviously, what we were talking about in the News Roundtable, which is obviously a combination between, obviously, people having freedom of speech and the openness of amateur radio, etc., and the whole thing about communication, understand what's going on. And I'm sure, James, you would accept as well the fact that some people want to make some sort of stance, and as I say, hence what's going on. I think we covered this pretty well in the News Roundtable, but James, really do appreciate your feedback, and hopefully what you heard, a few minutes ago, will let you know that. I suppose in one respect, you could argue sitting on the fence. I think it's more a case of fact it's just too complicated for some of us to know. But most importantly, we want to generate thoughts and discussions on what's going on in the amateur radio hobby, which is the most important thing. Now, good news, our dear friends. I found somebody lurking, just on the sofa, lying up, feeling a little bit unwell still. But you're here with us, Dad. Martin's here, M1MRB. Hopefully the recovery is going well, and I know you've been listening to the digital group, heard a few messages of kindness coming away from our listeners, and as I say, it's great that we've got that lovely channel open that people can communicate on, and not only that, but raise your spirits.
Yeah, it certainly is, Colin, and I thank everybody I've spoken to on the digital group, and quite a few that I haven't spoken to. Not that I didn't want to, but this virus kind of puts you on your back, and you can't concentrate for more than a few minutes before you're totally wrecked. But I don't want to go on about that too long, because I never felt it was life-threatening. I just felt absolutely rotten. What I will say is, though, Chris, Edmund and I, along with a friend of the show, Neil, went to Hamzilla, and we had a stand there. Chris and I have both had COVID. Neil and Edmund haven't. Now, you cannot instantly blame the rally, and I'm being probably a bit heavy on this. You cannot instantly blame the rally. Oh, I got COVID at the rally, we shouldn't have rallies. I think, I know that Chris tested positive far too early to have got it at the rally. And I probably got it from Chris, although I could have got it from anywhere, in fairness. So that's that. But however, both Edmund and Neil spent 2 hours each way in the car, so 4 hours in a car with me, and have shown no signs. So don't blame the rally for this. That's what I'm going to say. A lot of people have got it, and that's the thing. On the talk group, again, those I haven't spoken to, who've probably been thinking, where is the old devil? I apologise. I'm going to try and be on far more in the next few days, or next few weeks even, like I used to be, having a chat with various people as they come up during the day. But no, the talk group is not dead, and I see it in use all the time. And it's not just for us ICQ podcast presenters. The talk group's there for everybody. So, in fairness, it's for you guys to talk amongst yourselves as much as we'll join in if we're called or if we hear somebody call. So that's where I kind of am on that one, Colin. Almost back to full strength. Sorry I didn't do the news roundtable for you, mate, but I couldn't do it. From M1MRB.
You're okay. I'll let you off this time. I'm here as your backup man. It's not a problem at all. Well, talking the news roundtable, we'd like to thank Ed DD5 Lima Papa, Leslie Golf Zero, Charlie India Bravo, Edmund Mike Zero, Mike November Golf, and Dan KB6 November Uniform for joining us at news roundtable. Thanks as well to Chris Howard, as already mentioned there, for doing our feature. That's Chris, Mike Zero, Tango, Charlie Hotel. And of course, many thanks to Bradford, KD7 Golf Delta Tango, for his very kind donation to the ICQ podcast this episode. Now, as always been mentioned, as your donations not only keep the show running, keeps the website running, keeps the digital group stuff running, etc., keeps all the services running for you that we're trying to develop for you. So, as always, if you found value in what we do at the ICQ podcast, a great way to get involved. We mentioned in the news roundtable about time, talent, and treasure. Well, this is where your treasure gets involved. And so you can go to icqpodcast.com/donate. And so think of the value you found from the show, turn it into a monetary figure, and send it our way. And then say we'll use that to continue to develop the services and the things that we're doing for you. So it'd be great to have, that very kind donation coming our way. Right, well, normally I'd say to you, Dad, it's time for you to consider making Mum a cup of tea and getting a chocolate biscuit, but I really hope this time she's out looking after you and maybe plunging the cafetiere into the coffee and, as I say, making you a fine brew for you to relax and continue your recovery.
Yeah, well, as I say, that would be nice. Your mum and I are keeping ourselves sorted. Your mum's actually had COVID as well. And she keeps telling me she ain't had it as bad as me because she's now tested negative, whereas I'm still testing positive. I almost thought my world was coming to an end, Colin, when coffee didn't taste very nice for a couple of days. That was a real worry. But we've gone back past that. So, your mum and I will have a drink in a while and see what else we can find. So that's it, pretty much, Colin.
Yeah, well, I'll say 73s to you, 73s to all our listeners. And as always, we'll catch up again in a fortnight's time. 73s all.
Yeah, 73.